Diamo inizio ai lavori con la relazione introduttiva del vicepresidente dell'Istituto Affari Internazionali. I speak English since now we pass and I ask the General Camporini, former chief of Italian Army, to speak in English. And his opening speech has the title, History Has No End, Present and Future of Geopolitical Challenges. Please, Generale.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Laura, for having invited me in this audience to say a few words on how I see the world. One of the specific features of psychology is the underlying belief that what is happening today will last forever, and that the present moment is eternal. This regardless of the rational understanding that everything is moving at that pantarei, as Heraclitus argues. But in the bottom of our minds, we expect continuity so that our mindset is not destabilized by the unknown. That is why we are always surprised by new events. We talk of black swans, but in the essence, everything is a black swan. A good friend of mine is Franco Venturini, one of the most prominent columnists of the newspaper Corriere della Sera. In 1989, he was a reporter from Moscow. And I asked him, well, what did you expect during that summer? Everything was boiling. The world was changing. The answer was nobody could even expect what was going to happen. No one had realized that the things could become so incredibly speedy in the changing of the argument. So the point is that whenever everything happens, it is clear that we are not expecting it. And I could quote many other examples similar to this. That is why I do consider the title of this conference very appropriated. Compared with the history of past centuries, the speed of changes has increased in an unpredictable way. In particular, why during the Cold War everything appeared to be static, with the two superpowers confronting each other, after the crash of the Berlin Wall, history, instead of ending, has accelerated, giving the analysts and the political leaders little time to elaborate appropriate strategies, so to face the new challenges with success. Future, instead of being a perspective for the years ahead, is getting even closer, and we need to be more reactive. And more than that, we must be proactive so to anticipate the accelerated evolution of events, of capabilities, and of the environment. Indeed, the future is now. The political landscape is moving fast. The geostrategic balance is shifting, and the consequences will be deeply felt, not by our grandchildren or by our sons and daughters, but by ourselves. Notwithstanding the demographic and the economical difficulties, Russia is back on the scene. It is true that population is diminishing due to problems with birth rate, with the life expectancy, and the industrial backwardness of the economy, in an economy which is based practically mostly on the price of oil. Nevertheless, the ancient dream of Moscow for a granted access to the Mediterranean and the warm seas is becoming true. We see back the Russian fleet back to the Mediterranean now. And of course, the crisis in Syria has been a great opportunity for Moscow to re-enter the big game. China, in the last decade, has reversed a centuries-old policy of internal control, and now is projecting its influence and indeed its powers outside its borders. A buoyant economy needs safe markets, safe raw material supply, and of course, safe lines of communication to grant both. One belt, one road. Military bases which are starting to be created. We have the example of Djibouti, and the idea of having a military Chinese base outside China 10 years ago was totally unknown. We have Chinese military ships in the Mediterranean, exercising with other fleets. And we have the investment China is making in the harbor facility in Europe, the Pireo harbor. On the other side, the US has lost interest in the area. Energy independence makes the defense of national interest no longer a vital issue. And Trump is just implementing, sometimes in a very unpolite way, what was a tendency already openly stated by his predecessors. I could say that there's only one reason, one historical and ideological reason why the US are not abandoning totally the area, and this is Israel. The defense of Israel is one of the pillars of the US policy, and we have to be thankful in this way for this situation to be still on the ground. In the area, we have Iran and Saudi Arabia, which are struggling for regional hegemony, with a third uncomfortable actor, Turkey. Turkey, which is creating situations where also Russia is exploiting, in order to foster its policy. The situation involving the Aegean Sea, Cyprus, the East Med. We have Turkey, which is claiming sovereignty of some Greek islands. Very strange, between two countries which belong to the same military alliance. For how long, I do not know. There are interest in the energy field, the discovery by ENI of the Zohr gas reservoir, which will dramatically change the picture in the Mediterranean. We have Egypt, which, thanks to this discovery, will become energy independent. And this is changing, a game changer. All that with the issue of Cyprus not yet resolved, and which allows Ankara to implement a very aggressive policy in terms of exploitation of the resources in the area. We have seen our platforms which have been prohibited to operate with the excuse of military exercises, which of course are just instrumental. We have only one constant in this situation, and since I am a very deeply in my heart a federalist, the inability of the European Union to establish a common policy and to be an actor in the area. And this is extremely, extremely frustrating for all of us who run the risk of becoming totally irrelevant in this big game. This goes together with the crisis in the concept of multilateralism. Till a few years ago, multilateralism was the only way to discuss among people, among countries, among politicians. Today, we are back to bilateralism, which is in a way more dangerous for our countries because we have a lesser weight than the big players like China, like Russia, like the US. We have this, all of these crises which are only a part of the big picture. And I don't want to enter the issue of the South China Sea, the problem of freedom of navigation in the area, US ships which are entering what the Chinese pretend to be their national waters. We have a good set of problems in front of us. And the situation may rapidly change in direction which we cannot expect. But we must expect them. You must expect them. You who are operating in this environment, in the sea environment. You must look forward, not considering, as I said in the beginning, that what's going on today will go on forever. So again, the future is now. So let's look at the future because it will be relevant for our daily lives. Thank you for your attention.